Greetings, you all. Happy Saturday. How's everybody doing today? I am the Moon Mama, and today is Saturday, which is the day that Saturn rules, and Saturn is currently retrograde in Pisces. Before I get started, I want to let you guys know that the Libra season workbook is ready, so you can go to my website and pick that up at healwithmoonmama.com and pick up the Libra season workbook before Libra season comes, which starts on the 22nd. So that work is available. Like I said, today is the day that Saturn rules, and Saturn is currently in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces is, first of all, it's closing out. Saturn has been in Pisces for 2.5 years or so, and it's closing out now. So Saturn is about to leave Pisces and go into Aries. And Saturn in Pisces, if you think about the last couple of years, Saturn in Pisces came because Pisces is the subconscious. Pisces is the ancestral realm. Pisces is altered states. Pisces is the opposite of this physical, mundane world. Pisces is the unseen, boundless, spiritual realm. That's what Pisces is. And Saturn being in Pisces, if you pay attention, the world has become very there are lots of spiritual revolutions happening. There's a spiritual awakening happening. All of that has been increased by Saturn and Pisces because Saturn is the 3D reality. So basically, the things that have been going on in our spiritual realm, our subconscious realm, are coming into manifestation in the 3D realm because Saturn puts nuts and bolts on that which is unseen. It brings it into the physical experience. But for many of us, because we've been living in the dark ages, this is such a key point, you all, to understand the ages, which is something that we're not taught in the West. These ages mean fucking everything. And we have been in the dark ages for the last thousands of years. The dark ages occur from the sun's position to the earth while the earth is on her tilt. So literally, if the earth is tilted this way and the sun is up here, it's going to shine and create a shadow, and that shadow impacts everything on the earth depending on the degrees of it. And so, because of where we have been in the darkest time, we have not been able to perceive the full spectrum of what we have access to in our human experience. We've only been able to perceive a small fraction of it, which has given us the illusion that we're separate. We've been able to perceive a small fraction of what is like the spectrum of light. It's been so clouded by the sun's position with the earth that we think we're separate. We think that's a race over there. Those are girls, these are boys. We have these narratives that pull us apart rather than bring us together, which then creates wars, disease. All of that has been the effect of the dark ages. But the good news is that we are coming out of the dark ages. But that's a process, and that process occurs for those who are willing to do the work, to wake up, to wake up to what it is. And as we're moving into the age of Aquarius, which we are, the work becomes to understand that reality is changing, you all. Reality is literally changing. And the way we relate to reality is changing and meant to change. It's changing back to the more organic ways of being. And so, with Saturn in Pisces, we've been asked to clean up the subconscious. Clean up, like all the stuff going on in your family, like addictions and, people talking about narcissism and, racism, classism. That stuff has to be cleaned up inside of you, so the things you think about it, the ways you participate in it, And we're all participating in it because we're all in this experience. So, I might not be a racist, but I might be at the effect of racism. I'm still participating in the system. I'm still in it. I might not be, a whatever it is, but we're all participating in it in the ways and the percentages that we do. So the work now is to wake yourself up, to take responsibility for the things that are going on in your experience, to see yourself, and that requires shadow work. That requires deep responsibility and curiosity. And let me tell you, one of the things that I'm so aware of is that the work that I'm doing is not popular right now because it's hard work. Like, you cannot take a pill for this shit. And we live in a world that has said, oh, if you're anxious, take this pill. Well, I look at your chart and go, if you're anxious, here's what's happening. Your great-great-grandmother did such and such and such, and you are still carrying the seed of that, and that needs to be healed. That needs to be transmuted. And then your anxiety will go away. Well, people are like, huh? But that's how this shit works, because we're carrying generations of stuff. So, for instance, I grew up in a family. I've talked a lot about my family, and my mother was raised by a black man and his wife, her mother. My grandmother was half white. My grandmother was the product of a white man raping my great-grandmother while she was working in his home. And then my grandmother came out, and my grandmother looked very much like Frida Kahlo. Just, big eyebrows, long hair, light skin. And then my grandfather was a very dark-skinned man. And my grandmother was very free. Like, she was a very independent woman. And my grandfather taught his daughters to cater to men. It was a very interesting thing. Like, he really taught his daughters to cater to men in a way like, he taught them to be smart and, have ingenuity, but it was the time, and he was a wealthy man, so he knew that men had the power and women did not. So he taught them how to be women that would attract men with power. And so my mother, that worked for her. Like, she became a prostitute. Like, she used her power packet directly. Then there was another sister who wasn't really interested in it at all, and so she's been mostly single. Another one of his daughters was very pretty. They're all very pretty women. Dated celebrities. Like, she was like the side chick. She was like Muhammad Ali's side chick and Sugar Ray's side chick. Like, that was interesting. And then one of them is just very, very smart and married once, and then that marriage didn't work, but got a lot out of that marriage. Like, she made that marriage work for her. She was married to somebody who was like a hustler, and she made that marriage work for her financially, and then she leveraged that into like a relationship with somebody who was very smart and had a business, and she married him. And it was so interesting. When I was young, they were young women when I was young. So like when I was like 15 and 16 years old, they were in their 20s. And one of them told me, it was really interesting. I used to work at a men's clothing store. I love men's clothing. Oh my gosh, I just love men's clothing. Like, I think men's clothing is so incredible. And my father was very stylish. And my aunt told me, she said, like, somebody had complimented me on my smile or manner, and I was sort of moved by it. And she said, men only want one thing, and if they're complimenting you on your smile, it's because they want you to suck their dicks. That's it. And I was like, huh? But it really freaked me out. Like, it changed me, because like this morning as I was putting on my lipstick, I was remembering that that's what she told me. And it was, and then I started going through puberty, and I started noticing that there was this thing that was happening where the boys were really pursuing, where we weren't on equal footing anymore. they weren't just my friends. They weren't just trying to hang out. Let's go ride the bikes together. That wasn't happening anymore. There was something else happening. And it was puberty, which turned into, of course, sex. But I had been raised in a family that gave me the idea that I really needed to cater to men, to boys. And as I've been doing the work to heal and clean up these patterns, I see all the ways that I was taught to cater to men and to boys in my personality, in my pursuits, in my way of being, in my appearance, but I wasn't taught the power behind that, which is the power to really wield men. It's really the power to wield men when you understand where they're coming from and you understand what you have. But I wasn't taught it that way. And so what I'm knowing now with Saturn moving through Pisces is how important it is for me to understand my spiritual power above my physical experience. Above anything else, it's important for me to understand my spiritual power, because that is the thing that gives me leverage in the physical world. And as women, we don't understand how we are wielding reality through our desire, our yearning, our pleasure, our cutting it off. And because I didn't understand how this reality worked, I experienced an enormous amount of disappointment because my energy is really high and I can feel it, but it wasn't working in congruence with what it was I was feeling. It was giving me back, it was giving me feedback of like the negative of what I really desired. So if I wanted to have more of something, I would get less of it because I didn't understand that reality is following my command. And that's what we're not taught as women. And that is Saturn in Pisces. To understand your relationship to the spiritual realm, because your relationship in the spiritual realm creates your connection in the physical realm. And we have been in a very much more patriarchal, external driven world because of that sun's location to the earth, that we've not been able to access the full spectrum to understand who we are. And what that has impeded upon more than anything is our spiritual connections. We have not understood it. And as Black people, I was taught Jesus, and that didn't work for me. I literally left the church because it didn't work. I was doing all the things. I was fasting. I was praying. I was, celibate. I was doing all the things, and I was still getting feedback that my energy wasn't aligned because I was projecting the reality onto a man. Jesus, God, He, and that is inaccurate. God is the feminine. I'm not saying that it doesn't have a masculine component, because it does. But when you're a woman, you must understand the feminine component of the divine. And if you don't, your power is cut off. And that is something that I have not really understood until I started really studying deep into metaphysics, understanding, like I had to go into Hinduism and Tantra to understand and to see that the West cut off the feminine, which is why it's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. All that's external stuff. And it's not the unseen, invisible. And if you don't have the invisible, then you can't wield the external. So I know I just said a lot. And I feel my spleen. Today is Saturday, and Saturday is the Saturn, and Saturn rules our spleens. And so as we become more embodied in this work, it's going to be important for us to understand that it's happening inside of you. Your organs, so your spleen is connected to Saturn, your liver is connected to Jupiter, Your heart is connected to the sun. Your subconscious is connected to the moon. That's why I always say go learn your astrology so you can understand how it works. So today, for the spleen, I want to show you guys a spleen exercise. The spleen is here underneath the left rib cage. It's here. And the organs respond to sound and vibration, right? So the sound for the spleen is whoo, whoo. And so I lift up my hands to open up the space, and then I lean over to open up that area, and then just breathe in and release. Whoo. And I'll do that 3 times. And the spleen is connected to overthinking, because Saturn, when we can't figure this out, when we don't understand the codes here and the magic, we overthink. And that's Saturn, that's cause and effect. And then it creates more congestion in our reality. And then, so the overthinking and the worrying, right? My grandmother used a worry word. Capricorns, if you worry, all that stuff is spleen energy. And all you have to do is communicate with it. And then bring your hands to it and close your eyes and imagine golden light filling up your spleen. All right, y'all. So that's it for today. The Libra workbook is ready. You can go and pick it up. You can pick it up in my link tree here, or you can go to my website at healwithmoonmama.com and pick the Libra workbook up, because we're about to do a turn in the astrology, y'all. So the world is about to get really intense. This Libra workbook is medicine. The work that I create is medicine for the time. Everybody has every sign in them, and when we honor where the sun is in the cosmology, we're honoring where it is inside of us. And so I designed these workbooks to help us embody these new energies so that we can release our old way of being and create a new foundation and step into a new one. We are being asked to transform. We're being asked to change the way we relate to reality. And if you're not doing it, then you're going to have some challenges. So I create these workbooks and I encode them with the energy that is a stepping stone from one reality to the next. If we follow the sun, which is what these workbooks help us do, we will be directed and guided into our yet to be, our greater yet to be. All right, y'all. Peace and blessings. Ooh. Release all that worry and overthinking. Peace and blessings. I love y'all. Bye-bye.